also, I think that I look like the auntie, the eclectic auntie who manages her wealth by like selling art across the world, who is probably a spinster and a widow or something like that, as a spinster, and like she just collects art all day. That's what she does for a living. I'm like that weird, like eclectic Edwardian auntie. That's the vibe that I'm getting from this whole fit. Love it. This look is reminding me of Anne of Green Gables, the 90s, 80s version with Megan Follows. The scene where she has to go read her speech, like her poetry, for the first time for everybody. I'm like, why does it just look so familiar for? Now I know why. Now I subconsciously chose this dress without realizing why. That's probably it. I'm actually just gonna have my laptop on my lap because I did so much research on this. I'm not gonna be able to remember on top of my head, but yeah, so I'd be wondering, what the heck is the Edwardian era? Like, what do we establish as the Edwardian era? There's so many videos on the Edwardian era on here. Like, the fashion history girl is like, I know they have a little figure with this era. It's a little like, little sparkle of like fashion history that's just like, ooh, like a little bit of a ooh to it, you know. You know what I mean? It's a little excitement that you get this whole time period. So we're wondering, what the heck is the Edwardian era? Like, what is it? Never heard of it. I know the Victorian era. I know the Regency era. What the heck is the Edwardian era? So Edwardian era followed after the Victorian era. It was during King Henry VII at the time, who was the King of Great Britain. That's hence why Edwardian, the name comes from, King Edward. The style ranged from 1901 to 1919, but I know some people expand it more from like the late 1800s and then into 1920s. I kind of can see it that way, like late 1800s, and then especially peaked during early 1900s. Edwardian era was like 1910 was just like its holy grail of like fashion gems. So that's where the time period of where the Edwardian era comes from. You can kind of think like Titanic a little bit, think The Little Princess, Anne of Green Gables, The Secret Garden, that kind of whole, I think it's called Tuck Everlasting, that movie as well, that also is set during that time frame. Picnic at Hanging Rock, your girl is in that movie. That's also the whole time frame for like Edwardian era. If you see those films, you can definitely see the cohesive in garments as well. It's all about delicacy. So coquette girlies, you will love the Edwardian era. The Edwardian era is like the basis for coquette. Before you had the cute little 60s Lana inspo, it was the Edwardian era. That Edwardian era, that's the birth of coquettism. I like to say it myself, like that was at its peak. So you like that frills, the girly, the lace, pastels, delicate fabrics, softness. That was literally all the Edwardian era was all about. Femininity was like peak, not socially, but like garment wise it was. A bit more freedom and movement and garments. So false bodices were in and fitted bodices were out. It was all about less construction in this upper section along the waist here. That was like gone with the Victorian times of corsets, gone with the times of fitted bodices, out the window. So the key reason for that is because the Victorian era was all about highlighting the width, right? So you really want to get that shape, whereas the Edwardian era was all about a slim kind of soft silhouette, so more like an S shape. And when I actually noticed that, go back and look at the photos, you can see how I guess the top half of the bodice is slimmed down, like as if there's no breast there. It's just kind of like smoothed down to like create the top of an S sense. Like they wanted, it looks so unfunctional, but like they wanted more. At the time the trend was like more of an S kind of silhouette, an S kind of body type. So that's why I always say never get upset about your body figure and what's trending, because either trends always repeat themselves, history always repeats itself, the cycle will always repeat itself, especially with fashion trends. Or your body trend or your body type, whatever you want to call it, was already in fashion just like a couple hundred years ago. So like may not be now, but at the same time period, like you were the it girl, everyone loved your body type, like it was in, everyone in that body type. So like never get too fickle about like body figure and shape, because it's just a trend and they come and go, and like it was a praise and love at some time, if not now, if not in the past, it'll be in the future. Like it's ridiculous, but it's the world that we in. During that time, one of my absolute favorites, by the way, she's like a pioneer for me when I got so hooked into her designs and her story, is Jean, I'm going to probably butcher it, Jean Lacroix. So you know how at the Edwardian era there was like the time where like the waist was like so cinched in, but then it wasn't like, I guess, an hourglass shape. It was very just like seemed very soft and delicate, and then like it was the décolleté and like the collarbone and off the shoulder was like very highlighted. You can thank her for that. That high class like femininity like just looks like wow. You can thank her for that. I'll attach the photo on the screen. There's a photo that was captured where she did an experiment, which I think is a great idea. Actually, like we should, someone bring it back, please. That's a great idea. Basically, her designs are new and upcoming, considered scandalous from the time. She got 3 models to wear her designs, sent them out into a very famous, popular race course. That was like a race, I guess, event that was happening at the time. And basically these models just walked around just like modeling the garments, and it was the talk of the town back in the day. Everyone was like, oh my god, it's so tight, it's like lingerie, like who made this, and then it was her, Jean Lacroix. So she made it that kind of tight in silhouette, that bodice that we have, you know those bodice dresses in 2010 that were like very tight and like just skin tight dresses. That was the birth of it in this time period. So I'll show you some of the designs on the screen, but like so beautiful. Chef Kiss, just so good. Out of all the designs from the Edwardian era, hers is like by far my absolute favorite. Like she's my favorite designer, period. Talk about is the attention to detail when it comes to Edwardian era like fashion. Oh, my dress is caught. That was probably an ongoing problem, having your dress stuck to everything. Time was just amazing in terms of anything, not just fashion and garments, just like everything. Hats, accessories. Oh my god, I will go on to that in a little bit, but accessories were just out of this world. Makeup compartments, bedroom furniture, art itself. It was just like the detail in everything. It was all about detail. Even though it looked so simple, it looked so plain, like a basic blouse or just a basic shoes, basic bag, basic hat. It was all the micro tiny details. It was all about details. It's simple, like lots of beiges and whites. You'd see some colors, maybe some pastels, but they were mainly worn for tea gowns. So tea gowns, if you're not sure, basically gowns they wore specifically for like tea. So you go in the evening or afternoon to go visit your family or friend. You would change out of your regular gown and you put on your tea gown, or breathable and comfortable gown for the evening. So that's another thing too. The daily wear did have some sort of, I can't remember the name for the life of me, did have some sort of like tightening bodice, and then when the tea gowns, when you go for lunch for tea and stuff, then you'd remove that and then you'd have just the no corset, just a breathable, no tight bodice, just like a breathable, just the garment itself. That makes sense? That's where the colours will come into play, the pastels, greens, pinks, purples, maybe some yellows here and there. Like that's when you kind of see colours coming through. Laces, and as you can see in the photos, high collar. So it was a very modest time. The part of the Edwardian era that I think is my favorite, that I absolutely love the most, is actually the evening gown. So when they'd go to like theaters, balls, I guess like parties and stuff, when everything, that's when you would have a bit more revealing. Like you'd wear lots of garments were like off the shoulder. There was not about high collar. High collar was more like day wear. Not that much evening wear. Evening wear was more off the shoulder. You'd showcase your décolleté. All about the collar. You'd have elaborate like necklaces and pearls and jewelry. It was all about showing off your accessories. Basically lots of lace work and still like, I guess, small diamantes as well were woven to some garments to give it a bit of a shine. But evening gowns during the Edwardian era are my absolute favorite. Oh my god, it's my absolute favorite. It's so stunning, so beautiful, so elegant. If I could wear any garment in my entire life from any time period, 100% it would be an evening gown from the Edwardian era, because the attention to detail is insane. So beautiful, and it just like, the way it just sits on the body is just like, oh, you don't see that anymore. And it's just tailored skirts. So you'd have the blouse, sometimes you'd have a you'd have a coat. That's going into winter, that's a different story. But you would have tailored skirts, which would be extended to a wide circular hem as well. So I'll leave some photos so you can visually see what I'm trying to get at. They also had, I think they had pockets. There was still pockets involved. Obviously that I'm talking about like day wear, not evening. No pockets for evening, no pockets for tea gowns, no, I guess for daily function. But again, that wasn't even in the early like Edwardian time period. It came upon later on, way later on. Like Instagram influencers now, models and stuff now. We have girls, if you will, for this time period. We have the girls, or the group of girls, or just women who kind of, or a group, even if you will, that kind of represent the fashion for the time. Every time period had them, and obviously there was like pin-up girls and 50s and all that kind of stuff. Every decade had their own. For the it girls of the Edwardian era were the Gibson girls. So you may have heard of, I think it's that movie called Ziegfeld Follies. It's got Hedy Lamar's in it, the one where she's got the stars. Yeah, if you were a Gibson girl and you also were a Ziegfeld Foley, Gibson girl was the it girl. If you were a Gibson girl, you were the girl that was like, everyone was like looking up to. You had the fashion sense, you had the wealth, socialite. Some were even actors, singers and opera singers at the time, models. Yes, if you're a model, like Gibson girl model, like they were like the girls of that time. So also if you were a Ziegfeld girl, Ziegfeld were like the stage theatre actresses during the time, who worked for Ziegfeld. I'm not sure if it was a company or a guy, I don't remember. But yeah, they were also very put on front. Like stage theatre was it at the time. It was really the booming birth of acting, if you will. Yeah, so if you were a Gibson girl, Ziegfeld girl, you were like, you're Paris Hilton of that time. You were all the way up there, which would have been fun, I guess. And like makeup compartments. Accessories were a huge thing for the Edwardian era. Again, like how much accessories you had showed off how much wealth you had. It really was about excessive wealth when I think about it now. So you see those photos where they're wearing just layers upon layers upon layers of pearls and pearls. You look at the royal family during that time, the Romanovs during that time, King Edward and other royal families during that time. You see the pearls upon pearls upon pearls. It wasn't just for aesthetics and delicacy. It was also to show off how much wealth you had. The more pearls you had, the more like, you know, class, I guess, you had too. The jewelry during that time, intricacies and details for jewelry were absolutely immaculate. One of my favorite pieces from Edwardian era is the chokers. So chokers are definitely not new. The 90s were not the first go for chokers. Chokers were really popular during the Edwardian era and the Victorian era. So chokers would mainly be worn for evening gowns only, because I mean it makes sense really. Some people would wear it with their day wear, but I think it's mainly for like wealthier, higher class women. Middle class women, you will not be wearing your jewelry during the day, definitely for evening events only. So they'll be wearing like an off the shoulder lace gown. A lot of the gowns would be draped. I will let you know that. Draped, cottons, lace, some silks and satins. It was also very popular for evening gowns. And they'll always wear a choker. Sometimes it would be the stacked pearl chokers, which I love, and I were only around for a very short period of time, unfortunately, in this present day. But the stacked chokers, like pearls for evening gowns was so beautiful. There's also little dainty necklaces they would wear. Most of the jewelry would sit along here, unless it was stacked pearls, and you'd have draped, as I have here, draped and then a shorter one. Yeah, but the dresses during the evening gowns were just... Oh, dainty rings, I forgot about that. Dainty rings and earrings were also very popular during that time. See how I've got some pearls with a bit of like antique embellishments and stuff on it. You would not find sparkly sparkly earrings, unfortunately, or sparkling jewelry or anything like that. Everything was kept to a minimal and very, I guess, small. It was all about accentuating the natural features, accentuating a natural beauty, what she already had, and working with it. Yeah, which is ironic because Victorian era was like no makeup at all, period, just like going as we are raw. And then you have Gibson girls who are just like fresh, full of life. That whole attractive to youthfulness also started during that time period, unfortunately. It was like marketed heavily and then it just kept going. So you can blame that time period for that too. But back to jewelry, everything was delicate, very soft. If there was shapes, soft shapes. Soft curvature pieces of jewelry like hearts, round shapes, lots of geometric shapes too, but ovals and circles. And you'd also find lockets as well. I think for the youth during that time they wore lots of lockets, like and that also carried on to 1920, which is just pretty cool actually. You can see how previous decade gets carried on through. So basically jewelry was very soft. The clothes were delicate and the jewelry also reflected that as well. Beauty compartments and like accessories and handbags was also quite small. They had those little pouches which I find so cute. Like, you know how we have those really small bags now that you like, well, I can't fit anything in there. Get that. Minus it down even more to like just a round circle thing and a string, and that's what their bag was. I find it the cutest thing ever. Like, they'll just carry this little bag. It wasn't like, when you look at it, it doesn't really seem like a bag, but it was a bag. It was just, again, very like round, ovals, circles, all those kind of delicate features, even through bags. They're a bit more practical, I will say. Like, they held a lot more compartments. There was a lot more you could put through, like blushes, like rouge and lipstick and eyeshadow was all compacted into one small thing, so that way it could fit inside the bag. I wish you brought those back. Set during that time, and we got to see the garments and stuff, and I asked the curators, like, how are they able to wear garments like that and not pass out? Like, how are they able to like move around freely? Like, I don't, like, how did my brain come up around that? Like, they were just like sweating all the time. Like, I don't understand. She told me that it's because obviously climate change, so the weather, the heat that we have now wasn't the same as it was back then. So maybe like it wasn't as humid and as hot as we have it now, so that makes sense. Also, the fabrics that they used were all very lightweight fabrics. She explained it was all like pure organic, like pure cotton, pure linen was mainly used, bits of lace. All that chemise type fabric was very thin, so when they had to layer upon stuff, it was like, you know those see-through tops that we have now that are just like, it feels like just one layer of fabric, that's it, just sewn together. Imagine that on top of like 3-4 times itself, and turn our heat like down to halfway. Like, you'd probably manage, right? Like, it wouldn't feel that hot. You have this breathable lightweight fabric. Also in Australia it was a lot more hotter than like European countries during that time, so I also still thought, but you know, it's Australia, it'd be more hot still. It still wasn't as hot as we have it now, but she said obviously, like, you see photos too during that time if you go to like places and stuff in Australia, you would see like the women would have like a piece of clothing removed, like not completely obviously, but like maybe a layer would be removed, taken back. Their hats would be taken off. There would be no gloves obviously because it was outdoor activity and it was just too hot. So those images and media you see, they didn't wear all that 24/7. If you look at actual like real life photos of people during that time, so not just like actors during that time period, but like actual photos, that's where I get lots of my inspiration and ideas and like the real life of these people during that time. Like look at those photos, like just candid shots, or even just like the photo booth photography type shots, or even like events. That's where you can really see the life of these people with these garments and how they were able to move about like functionally with them, if that makes sense. Yeah, that was basically the Edwardian era wrapped up. This is the reason why I feel it's so underrated, because I feel like it's so overlooked because of the details, and because people just see it as like the era we all just wore white all the time, and like classism, and like totally agree with the classism, like totally 100% agree there. Not saying I disagree, I agree with that. But in terms of fashion, like I feel like that era is so overlooked because of how delicate it was and how it just looks so simple, because you just see white and plain and boring. But I feel like if we took those details and those techniques and like modernized it in some sort of way, and like, I don't know, like the fabrics they use, especially if things are getting more hot in like countries, and like a lot of fabrics nowadays are just so thick, especially for summer. Like if we could, I guess, use their techniques and use the fabrics that they had. Unfortunately, the minerals aren't really that available and around, but I guess borrowing those techniques, the pearls, and even like bringing hats back, time period, the delicacy of things and femininity of things. In a way, I feel like it didn't really make it soft, because socially during that time, things were changing. Even though women were dressed feminine, like the environment and I guess women's roles were, especially towards the end of it, was massively different. You had suffragettes as well during that time, so again, women having the rights to vote, dressed like that. You can imagine how, like, what a fight it must have been. And I think that was the start. I feel like the Edwardian era even is still an important time frame, because that was the start where things really generally were changing. That was like we're getting the ball rolling, you know what I mean? Before that, everything was just still going by the book, but the Edwardian era was like women were like, we're done, like this is enough, like this is going to be the last 10 years you're going to get from us doing what we've done before. Like it was really the birth of like things changing. Yeah, so I don't know, I feel like it's severely overlooked just socially and like fashion wise, and how like it holds a lot more importance in the fashion industry as well as in society, I guess. And how we can still borrow pieces of it. Like, I'm not saying the whole shebang, like the whole thing, but like fabrics, techniques, details, color pattern and color palette and color schemes, shoes, functionality is a big one, because they were able to make things look so beautiful but still be so practical. Yeah, just so many other little things, and it's just so overshadowed in history when it comes to fashion history. And I love vintage things, and that's just probably an era that I feel like needs more appreciation. That's just me, that's just my opinion. Yeah, so let me know down below if you agree, or if you think, you know, just shush, you don't know what you're talking about, or let it be in the past. Or let me know if you agree and you're like, yeah, cool, I can totally see us having like an Edwardian revival in terms of fashion, but like in a modern way. I feel like we possibly could, because the whole rise of coquette lately, it's, people don't realize it, but that's a lot of inspiration from Edwardian era, like a lot. So yeah, even they still wear bows a lot too. Like you can find photos of bows on dresses, bows on hats, bows on the hair. Like, yeah, it really was a time for women, aesthetically as well, visually. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. This actually will be my last video. Yeah, this is something that's been on my mind for a long time. It's been a long run, it's been a long journey. I'll explain more in another video coming up, but yeah, I will explain why, but yeah, this is my last video. Yeah, so I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for being around since the beginning. Those who have, I can't believe that still. That's just, I was like a kid when I started this channel, and it's just like, it's crazy to think that that it's been that long already. Thank you for who just like watch my videos, who just started. I really appreciate them so much. Yeah, I'll go into more detail in the next video, but this is the last content-based video for this channel. It's a big deal, it's a big thing. We're closing one chapter, and hopefully the next one is just gonna just like fly, just like this one has. Yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been hella interesting. It's been a ride. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Oh my god, I can't believe I'd actually be saying that.